Yeah, I'm going to try to record every lesson for the whole year for two things. One, if somehow you've missed one, you get to see it. If maybe you didn't understand something and you want to go back and review it, you can. So that will try to be my goal for the whole year. Why is that showing up there or not? Here. Okay. All right. Let me just talk about the summer assignment. If you want me to look at it, just remember, like July 31st is the last day I'll look at it and give you feedback. A couple of guys have sent it to me. Generally, they've been excellent. Here is typically what I would say could be improved. First of all, the graphs are the most important thing in econ. So please, like the production possibilities curve and the circular flow diagram should be in your notes. The second thing is try not to use the examples Manku uses in the book. He's 80 years old. Like he talks about guns and butter. Like, I don't know, does anyone know what he's talking about? Use authentic examples. All right, there's a couple of reasons. One, you're going to better understand your examples. Second, research shows that if you use your own examples, you're going to recall the information better at a later date. And you're going to be responsible for knowing a lot of material. So any edge you can do for your recall will help. Okay? So I would say examples, graphs. Was there one other thing? I think those are the two big things I would say to make sure you get full credit on your summer's assignment. And I'm going to just tell you, again, the notes they're up to you. Everyone does notes differently, but long as they're your tools. So I'll go with what you do. All right, the essay there was the college essay. I don't know how many of you have looked at the what Mr. Mark Steiner did by teaching his US history class how to write a college essay. I think it's worth looking at. To go over again, I talked to the admissions directors of a couple of colleges, and they said the thing kids do the worst is write the college essay. So if there was a place that you're looking to get an edge, if me and you are both applying to Michigan and we're equals, that could be a place to look at. So again, just, if it's worth doing and looking at it, and trying to get some of your college essay done over the summer when you don't have as many other obligations. And then the last is next Wednesday. We'll be back to Wednesdays at 11:30 for the following 3 weeks. For you guys at home, just yell out if you have a question, okay? As I'm talking, just like interrupt and say, hey, Mr. Bressler, that's fine. I don't really have a rhyme or reason to what I'm doing. So if you interrupt, that's fine. All right, let's see, I can't go backwards. All right, if you could, I think this works best with your phone. So if you want to take out your phone and go to polev.com. See, could I just put that in the chat and it might be easier. Where is the chat nowadays? Oh, and by the way, this link will always be the link for the Zoom. So the link doesn't change. So I don't know if you want to save it. Okay, so it's in the chat. Sometimes that's easier for you. Okay. Okay, so I put the poll ev.com/Phil Bressler635 in the chat. If you just want to, put where you are, a little mood meter, see where your energy is. Okay. Well, it seems like most of us are in the high energy, pleasant part. Some of us are struggling. I'd probably be in the top right quadrant myself right now. High energy, feeling good, glad to be doing this. Okay. So I use poll everything a lot. So we'll be doing a lot of that. I'm going to skip Will Smith for now. All right, so here's what we're going to try to accomplish today. We're going to try to get you to understand the difference between opportunity costs and trade-offs, how we graph these, like how we're going to show opportunity and trade-off in production possibilities curve graph, how countries decide what to make and trade, and then how opportunity costs determine trade. So we'll try to get through those four major things today and some practice. And by the way, if I talk too fast or you need me to slow down, just slow me down. I don't take anything personally. All right. All right, so all decisions involve trade-offs, all right? And trade-offs are all the alternatives you give up when you make a decision. Right. So if we're thinking about trade-offs as far as like today, what did you give up by coming to this session? Some of you, it would be sleep. Some of you could be playing games. Some of you could be working. Some of you could be hanging out with your friends. All of those are trade-offs. So trade-offs are not like one opportunity. They're all the alternatives, all right? So, economists like to say there's no such thing as a free lunch because everything has a trade-off, all right? Nothing really is for free. So that's trade-offs. The most desirable alternative, so I gave you all those things. So like lunch, I mean, rather sleeping, maybe breakfast, maybe on going out playing with your friends, maybe gaming. All of those are trade-offs. The most desirable alternative is the opportunity cost. Now, are we all going to have the same trade-offs and opportunity costs? No. Like my trade-off might have been, I could be golfing. Someone else's trade-off might, rather, my opportunity cost might be I could go golfing. Someone else might be sleep or eating, okay? So when you're thinking of like the trade-offs for going to college, I mean, there are a lot of trade-offs there. But we don't have to go through all those examples. Okay, so there is trade-offs and opportunity costs. And I'll tell you, a lot of times they're almost used as they're the same, but they're not. Just remember, the opportunity cost is the best. Like if I decided to be here, what was my second best decision? That would be the opportunity cost. Okay. Now, economics is a lot different because we think on the margin, and margin is additional. So like in everyday life, I think we think a lot on total, you know, like what's the total amount of money I spend? What's the total amount of things I purchased? But in economics, we think a lot about the additional unit. How much did it cost for me to make the third computer and then the fourth computer? All right. How much additional revenue do I bring in when I sell the third computer and the fourth computer? So we're going to see marginal a lot. You know, we'll talk about marginal benefits. We'll talk about marginal cost. So marginal is always like the additional benefit or the additional cost for an additional unit. All right. And then thinking on the margin is just like what I said. How much do I benefit? All right. My benefit from eating the first donut is going to be greater than the 8th donut. Because by the 8th donut, I'm probably going to get a little sick. So that's where we're looking at. Now, the cost of the donut is also probably going to change, right? Like if you buy one donut per donut, it's usually more expensive than, say, if you buy a half dozen. And that's because retailers understand marginal analysis. All right. All right. So here is an example of marginal analysis. All right. Now, I'm going to ask you, looking at this, just based on this information, and I'm going to give you like a minute to think about it. How many hours should you spend picking up money? Okay. So just give yourself like 30 seconds. Okay, here's what I'd like you to do. Type into the chat 1, 2, or 3. Okay. All right. We're getting, I think everyone here so far has knocked in 2. So 1 is the benefit's 200. It costs me 10. Obviously, I'm doing it. 2 is 99, 10, yes. 3rd is I'm benefiting by $1. No. So I'm going to stop at 2. Now, sometimes people will look at it and say, but, you know, I make 300 to 30. Yeah, that's true, but there's no, it's better to make 299 to 20. All right. So the 3rd hour was a waste of time. Now, I would also tell you there's a marginal benefit and marginal cost to studying. And after a while, there's a certain time where you're not benefiting anymore, like you've outdone what you could accomplish. So, you know, it works for studying schoolwork and almost anything. You know, you got to just continue to where the benefit is greater than the cost. All right. All right. Any questions on this? Again, at home, you could put it in the chat or you could call out. You're good. All right. Okay. I'll take that. Everyone's good. All right. So there's 4 factors in what we call factors of production, things that help us make things. And I just wanted to go over them. Producing goods and services require the use of resources. Okay. So here are the resources. All right, the first one is land. Now, when we talk about land, we're not just talking about like, area of land. We're talking about all natural resources. So when you see factors of production, land, you got to think of all natural resources. All right. So sun would be under land, right? Natural resource. Labor, just what you're thinking, workers. Now this guy, look how freaking hard this guy's working. And when I show you this at the end of the year and we're reviewing, he's still going to be pounding as hard. This guy's my idol. All right, so you got land, labor. Land, again, all natural resources. Labor, just what we think, workers. Capital. Capital is one that's tricky because it has nothing to do with money. Capital is things that make things. So like a sewing machine is capital because it makes things. Factories are capital because they make things. All right. So it has nothing to do with money, and money is not a factor of production. So you got land, labor, capital, and the last one is entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs, we usually think of as people who help solve problems. Look how happy that guy is. All right. So 4 factors of production: land, labor, capital, entrepreneurship. Again, the tricky ones are land, because land is all natural resources, and capital, because it has nothing to do with money. I mean, if you went home and you asked your parents, what's the definition of capital, somehow money would be involved. But for this in economics, again, it's things that make things. Okay. Now, accountants and economists determine profits and costs differently. So I'm going to just give you how accountants look at costs. Accountants look only at what we call explicit costs. So what's an explicit cost? It's anything that you pay for. So rent is an explicit cost. Labor is an explicit cost. I buy an oven, that's an explicit cost. Think of anything that you pay for cash or check or money, some actual money, that is an explicit cost. So when accountants are thinking of costs, they're just adding up everything you paid out. Okay. Economists look at explicit plus implicit costs. So economists, the costs are always going to be high because they're both counting explicit, but economists are now looking at implicit costs. So what really is an implicit cost? An implicit cost for you might be if you were making $10 an hour and you're sitting here now in this class, that cost you $10. Now, you didn't take $10 out of your pocket. You're not $10 poorer. However, the cost of being at this class cost you $10. If I was working in business as I was prior to being a teacher and making $100,000 a year, and now I'm making 50, the implicit cost would be 50,000, right? I'm making 50, I could be making 100. That I'm not paying anyone 50,000. I'm not 50,000 poorer, but I could have been making. So that's what economists do. They take explicit and implicit costs. Unless you're told differently for the rest of the year, we're always going to think like economists. So we're always going to count explicit and implicit cost. So if someone says the cost of doing something is $100, that is the explicit and the implicit cost totally. Again, unless someone breaks it out in a problem or says, think like an accountant. We're assuming economic view for the rest of the year. Okay. Any questions on accountants versus economists, explicit or implicit costs? And by the way, I love questions. So please, if you have any questions, feel free, just, yell at me. Okay. All right. So how do we plot these on a graph, like opportunity cost and trade-offs? Those are that was the second thing I wanted to go through. We use what we call as a production possibilities curve. Okay. And look, you guys know how to plot things on a curve. I just put numbers there. I won't even worry about the numbers now. But here's what I want to tell you. If it's constant opportunity cost, meaning like the opportunity cost is 1, resources are easily adaptable. And I'll show you the graph. The graph is going to be a straight line. All right. So what do I mean resources? The same things you need to make a calzone, you pretty much need to make a pizza. So if, I need to shift resources and get resources to make more pizzas, it's going to be easy because calzones and pizzas are pretty much the same resources. If you can make a calzone, you could probably make a pizza, even though physically making the pizza might be a little more difficult. All right. All right. So if you do see a straight line graph, it means constant opportunity costs, and then resources are easily adaptable. Okay, and that's the straight. And it's not, as it says, it's not as common. All right, second thing. Okay. This is the law of increasing opportunity cost. And this is, as you produce more of a good, the opportunity cost will increase. And that's basically because the resources are not easily adaptable. So, maybe when I'm building my first robot, man, whoever was making pizza was an engineer, and that was easy. So I moved him through. But as I'm building more robots, now I'm trying to train these pizza makers to be engineers. So the opportunity costs increase, right? When you have increasing opportunity costs, the resources are not easily adaptable, all right? So making pizza and making robots are totally two different skills. They need different things. So here the resources are not easily adaptable. So you're going to get a Bode production possibilities curve. And I'm going to show you that in a second. Okay. So increasing opportunity costs, not easily adaptable, Bode curve. And again, the opportunity costs increase because lack of. All right. So corn and wheat, there would be your straight line. That's constant opportunity cost. So if you see the straight line, you need to know A, constant opportunity cost. B, resources are easily adaptable. Okay. Now, cactus and pineapples, you see the boat out. The first thing that comes to your mind should be increasing opportunity cost, resources not adaptable. All right. All right, now I'm just going to put a couple of letters on the curve. Okay. So at points A, B, and C on the curve, all that's showing is, say at A, we're making more cactus, right? And less pineapple. You know, if I drew a cross, and it's hard to. And as you switch, and now you're making less cactus and more pineapple, it shows the trade-off, right? To make more pineapple, you have to produce less cactus. So here it's showing you trade-offs. Now, on the other hand, every point on the line shows that if you're on the line, you're using your resources efficiently, meaning you're getting the most out of your resources as you can. Okay, so every point on the line. So even though point A, you're making more cactus than pineapples, at that point, you're making the most cactus and the most pineapple. You're being the most efficient. You're using your resources efficiently. And that's the same as point C, even though there you're making more pineapples and less cactuses. You're having a trade-off, but again, you're using your resources efficiently. All right, now I'm going to put point D inside the circle. And by the way, the same thing is true if you're on the straight line, okay? If you're on the line, resources are efficient. D, that's inside either the circle, the boat out, or inside the line. That means you're using your resources inefficiently. In economics, that might be high unemployment. All right. It might be using a factory half a day. You could say last year during COVID, we didn't use the space at Calvert Hall efficiently, right? Because we were hybrid. So we're only using half of our capacity. That would be inside the curve. All right. One of the things I would say as students, your job is to be on that line, is to use your resource. And for econ, the biggest resource you have is me, and use me efficiently. Ask questions, meet with me. Make sure you understand the material. Don't be inside the circle. Don't use your resources inefficiently. All right. And the last point will be E. And if you're outside, that's unattainable with present day resources. So I can't get there with the resources I have today. Something's going to have to change. And we'll talk about that in a minute for me to move the curve outward. Right, if you have a question on anything we did with the production possibilities curve, please shout it out. Okay. Again, everything we did, points A, B, C, D, and E, are the same on the constant opportunity cost curve. Right. All right. See what we got next year. All right. There was just like I wrote the points on there. Again, there's the trade-offs and the opportunity costs that both these graphs show. All right. Don't worry about the 4 key assumptions. Just realize, like, the one assumption that you really need is that obviously there's more than 2 products in the world. We're just using, like, you know, pizza and calzones to make it easy for you to understand the concept. Obviously, like, there's more things going on. Now, remember I talked about how do you get to E? What shifts out the curve or maybe shifts in the curve? All right, here are the only 2. These are the only 2 things that can shift the curve. So if you shift the curve, you need to explain to me which one of these 2 things are happening. The first is change in resource quantity or quality. If we found oil, that would be a change in resource quantity. Your education is a change in resource quality, right? We're making the workforce at a higher quality. 5 million people come into the United States. That's a change in resource quantity. Unemployment is inefficiency. It's not a change in resource quantity. We still have the same amount of people. We're just not using them properly. So that does not shift the curve. That you just put a dot inside the curve. The second one is technology. So those are the 2 shifters. If the curve shifts outward, one of those 2 things have to improve. If it shifts inward, somehow we got hurt there. Okay. Again, they are the only 2 things that could shift the curve. Any questions? Okay. I think I got some practice here. All right. What happens if there's an increase in population? I'll give you like 30 seconds to think about it. Okay, Mr. Genius, how am I going to show on this graph an increase in population? What are you thinking? Aaron, are you? Oh, okay. Hold it. You hit something in the chat. Let me get there. Okay. Your mic. Yes, you would expand the curve. His mic wasn't working. So you could expand the curve altogether. So here's how I'm going to do it. Just to show you, I'm going to put an arrow and then I'm going to do another curve. All right. So that means on every point of the new curve, I'm going to be making more robots and more pizza. Why? because resources increased, change in population. Any questions? All right, let's try another one. What if there's technology improvement in pizza ovens? Give you like 30 seconds to think about it. All right. Charles B., what are you thinking here?
Wouldn't the pizza part of the graph go out further? Will it increase?
All right. Well done, Charles. So I'm going to like kind of just go over the line a little on the robots and then expand out there. So that shows me that it's not, the technology is not improving everything, but it's improving the pizza. So I'm going to be making more pizza. Okay. So if you're only going to like change half the curve, you know, half the items, you show it like that. Good job there, Charles. Okay. Now, I just want to go over this quickly. I might not have given you a space in your notes, but which country do you think will expand production in the future more, Panama or Mexico? Panama focuses, they make some capital goods, but they make mostly consumer goods. Mexico focuses on capital goods, even though they make some consumer goods. So I want you to think about which one of these curves, I showed you how much Panama has moved out. Is Mexico's curve going to move out more, less, or the same as Panama's? I'll give you 30 seconds to a minute to think about it. And I guess you could just raise your hand. It's either in like the reaction button or the participants button. You know, if you want to raise your hand and answer. No one wants to raise their hand? Come on, we have to have some brave souls out there. All right. Do you want to go?
Would consumer goods increase more because the increased capital goods, you can make more consumer goods?
So just tell me first, Mexico or Panama? What are you thinking?
Mexico.
Mexico. Now, why Mexico, who favors capital goods, right? Why do you think their future growth would be?
Because capital is referring to things that make things. So if you're increasing your, if you're favoring capital goods, then your consumer goods would increase.
Okay, so you're saying if you're favoring capital goods, you'll have more, let's just say, factories and things. So therefore, you could make more consumer goods in the future. Okay. Anyone want to agree or disagree with that? I thought we had some hands up, but I don't see where they went, so. All right. His answer was perfect. Mexico is going to be better for future growth because if we have more capital goods, just say more machines, those machines are going to then be able to make more consumer goods in the future. So anytime you see growth, they're talking about future growth, and capital goods always ensure better future growth. Now, if I do Mexico's graph here, you'll, maybe. You'll see bigger investment in capital goods, bigger future production possibilities. Okay. All right, any questions on the production possibilities curve? Shifters, anything like that? Just yell out if you have a question. All right. I'm going to give you some practice. I think I put these in. All right. So I want you to draw the graphs like, and you know, if you didn't print the outline, you could just draw it on a piece of paper like we did. All right. So if I go back, pizza and robots, because those are the first three questions. I want you to draw the graph like this and then show, based on the scenario I've given you, what's going to happen to the production possibilities curve. All right. So for pizza and robots, what's going to happen for new robot technology? What's going to happen for a decrease in demand for pizza? So that's a separate graph for number 2, a separate graph for number 3. So those are 3 different graphs. And then for consumer goods and capital, you'll have 4 graphs there. Okay. Any questions on what I want you to do here? All right. I'll give you like 4 or 5 minutes to graph each one of those and think them out. Label everything, graph everything, get into good habits. Okay.
Are the robots making pizza?
No. Separate thing. Good question. Robots are not making the pizza. Separate thing. Good question.
We draw like an initial graph and then.
Yeah. Start out like we did before. So. This could be bowed. And you know, you could have, it doesn't matter which axes, you could have robot and pizzas. All right, and then you're going to show, so you should have 3 initial graphs for robots and pizzas. I'll give you about 2 or 3 more minutes if you need. The way you did it here, that's perfect. Good.
So is the increase in education a reflection on technology?
No, I would say that's a reflection on quality of resources. All right, let's see what we got here. All right, new robot making technology. Someone want to like raise their hand so I don't just like call on someone here? All right, Drew, what do you have?
The part that's on the robots will increase, but the part that's on the pizza will stay the same.
Okay, and the shifter would be, what makes you shift it?
The new technology.
Right. Okay. And there you go. Notice it's one graph. You don't need 2 graphs. You just make the shift on one graph. Now, keep in mind, anything now on the new line, that means we're using the resources efficiently. And as I go up and down that line, it's still a trade-off between robots and pizzas. Now I just can make more robots due to the new technology. Good job. All right. Decrease in demand for pizzas. Who's got this? All right, we need some other brave soul besides Drew. Come on. All right. We got someone else. Oh, here we go. Mr. Donovan?
It would have no effect on the graph.
Okay, Mr. Donovan, why would it not shift out the graph?
So the graph shows just what the company can produce, not what it will. It probably won't produce as many pizzas now that there's not that much demand for it, but they still have the capability to produce pizzas, so nothing changes.
Okay. Anyone agree or disagree with Mr. Donovan? Go, Drew. What are you thinking?
Well, the other thing you mentioned before was that the only thing that can shift the curve is the change in resource quantity or quality, or change in technology, and the decrease in demand is neither of those. So it won't change as a result of that.
Okay. All right. So both of you are correct. There'll be no shift. But how am I going to show a decrease in the demand for pizza on this graph?
Put a dot on the inside of the pizzas.
All right, someone here is saying put a dot on the inside. That would say we're using the resources inefficiently. We might not be. Anyone think how I could show this? Take a stab. Okay, I'm going to show you. First of all, it was great that you realized there was no shifters. And that's really good. So I'm just going to put a dot and show that now I'm making more robots than pizzas. I'm still efficient. I'm using my resources efficiently. I'm just trading off because no one wants pizzas or they want less pizzas. So I'm making more robots. Okay. Any questions? That's a tricky one. You guys did well not shifting the curve. Usually people shift the curve. All right. Mad cow disease kills 85% of cows. Holy crap. Go.
Pizza's gonna decrease.
All right. Why would pizzas decrease?
The milk from cows used to make pizzas.
All right. Right. There you go. Okay. All right. Any questions on pizzas and robots? Just yell out, hit the chat, whichever you're more comfortable. Okay. I'm going to assume you're good then. All right. BP oil spill in the Gulf. Anyone want to volunteer for this? Come on, let's get some new people talking. Don't make me call on you in this. Okay. I'm willing to, if you don't want to. Let's go. Kenny? What do you have here? No? All right, Will A.
Yeah, would you have a decrease in capital goods?
Okay, explain your reasoning, Will.
Because I believe oil would be a capital good, so you have less of it now with there being an oil spill.
Okay. Will, I'll get back to you in a second because someone else go.
I feel like they both decrease just because if you're decreasing capital, then you can't produce as much, so your consumer goods are gonna decrease as well.
Okay. Now, Will, based on, I don't think the question here is really worded well. Your explanation, I would have accepted as correct. What I would say, I ended up shifting both inside. And the reason is, to me, to ship and make consumer goods, you need oil and gas and for energy. So I'd shifted inside. However, I don't think the way I asked this is really good. So your explanation would have been perfect. I would have accepted that as an answer. Okay. So I would have accepted both the way this went. All right. Faster computer hardware. Lorenzo, what do you have?
Would it both expand on like both sides?
Okay, explain why.
Wouldn't it have to do with the first like example used about quality of a resource improving?
Okay, I would have went with technology myself, and I would have shifted both sides like you did though. So I would have. Now, so that's how I would do it. I would have said, technology, but if you want to do it like quality of resource, you know, so the quality of computers got better, I would have accepted either one. No one's going to really ever ask on a test, say, what shifts it? I ask now to make sure you understand it. Now, the same thing though, I don't know how Will did this one, but if he just wanted to shift capital goods, thinking that's what computer hardware was, I would have accepted just a shift of capital goods there. Okay. All right. Many workers unemployed. We have someone who wants to jump in here for many workers unemployed. All right, we got a couple of people, so let's like this whole hand thing should be, Zoom needs to make this a little easier. All right, Joe, how you doing? How you doing, Joe?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Joe, you've been prepped for me well, because doing great is the answer. All right, Joe, what do you have here?
No change in the graph.
All right, Joe, I'm going to go with no shifting of the graph.
Okay, no shifting of the graph.
But, Joe, there is a change. So I want you to think about what the change might be. You're right. The curve isn't shifting.
Are you asking me what the change is?
Yeah, what do you think? I'm telling you there's going to be a change. You're right that the blue line is not shifted. But how am I going to show, Joe, that workers are unemployed? I got to show that somehow.
Is that a dot inside the graph?
Joe, virtual high five. Great job.
Thank you.
There you go. Okay. Joe is right. It's not a change in quantity or quality of resource. You might be asking, but Mr. Bressler, those people aren't working. But there's still the same amount of people. If I had 100 people working and now 50 are unemployed, I'm just not using them efficiently. The total of the resource is still 100. Okay? So I'm just going to go from any point outside the curve to inside the curve to show that I went from efficient to inefficient. All right. And Joe, good job sticking with that. All right. Significant increase in education. Can we get someone for this one? Oh, you guys know this one. Come on. Ian. Significant increase in education.
The consumer goods would increase.
Okay, why not capital?
Because like capital is like well, I mean, yeah, I guess it would also increase.
Okay, so you're increasing both of them.
Yeah.
All right, no problem, Ryan. Okay, and Ian, that's what I did the same thing. Okay, quality of labor has improved. All right, any questions on these 7? All right. Here's what I'm going to do. I am just going to introduce absolute and comparative advantage and end there probably for the day. Okay. So first of all, let me tell you, trade benefits both countries. And why? Because say Japan could specialize on making cars and we could specialize and put all energy into, say, making computers. And again, we're only using 2 things to trade to simplify it, but trade usually will benefit both countries. All right. So think of it in that respect. It's not like I'm trying to trade on the United States. I'm trying to figure out how to, take advantage of another country and win the trade. Okay. So there's 2 things in trade. Oh, that I just got to check the chat. Okay. All right. If you guys have to go to work, I understand. I appreciate that you come. All right. Absolute and comparative advantage. The absolute advantage is, by definition, this: the producer that could produce the most output, meaning who could produce the most cars, who could produce the most computers, who could grow the most wheat. All right. Or requires the least amount of input. So output is how much of that material I can make, how many cars, how many machines, how much corn. Input is what it takes. So when I say the least amount of inputs, I'm saying who can make the car using the least amount of net labor? Who can make the car in the fastest time? That would be an input. Now, a country could have the absolute advantage in both. So say we're going to only use 2 things in this at our level. So say cars and computers, I can make the most cars and the most computers. Or I can make cars in the least amount of time and computers in the least. You could do that with absolute advantage. Comparative advantage is who has the lowest opportunity cost. You always want to specialize in the product that you have the lowest opportunity cost. Why? Because it's costing you the least, so you can make the most profit. If China and the United States are trading only one country, you could only have the comparative advantage in one thing. So I could only have the comparative advantage in computers, then China has to have them in cars. Okay, so countries should trade if they have the lower opportunity cost. So if my lowest opportunity cost is cars, I'm going to trade cars and China's going to trade computers. And again, you want to specialize, which means you want to make the thing that costs you the lowest, because that is where you're going to make the most profit. Okay. Next week, we will talk more on opportunity cost and comparative advantage, and we will decide what countries should make and how they should trade. Okay. Now, the last thing I wanted to do for today is, all right, if you could go back, and I'll put it in the chat again. I'd like you to write down how much did I learn today, and it's, the numbers are there. And I appreciate if everyone could do it. It just helps me. I just put it in the chat again. Okay, I'll give you guys another like 30 seconds to. I'm going to go to the next slide. So there are people who put totally confused, learned a little. So first of all, if you're totally confused, you need to ask questions. But so that will get us to the next slide, I think. Oh, geez. What happened here? Oh, man. Could you see what the next? Does it come up? Like, could you, is it still for you guys? Are you still looking at the same slide? Are you? When you, on the poll, everything,
This, oh, in the poll, let me refresh. Yeah, it's still the.
all right, let me see, could I get to the question slide? Something happened on my computer that it went, and it's going out again. The PowerPoint is seeming to have trouble, but let me see, could I just refresh it? It says another is still open. Oh. It's the mood meter. All right, give me one more minute. Let me try, otherwise. We'll have to try to do it a different way. Oh. See if I stop sharing. Technology, sometimes good, sometimes could drive you crazy. All right, I'm going to tell you what we're going to do. All right, the second question I usually ask is there any questions or suggestions? So if you could just type into the chat any suggestions or questions. So if you were confused, just type in anything that you want me to answer next question. Okay? And the same thing, if you have any suggestions so you could learn better, type that in the chat. All right? And then after you've typed in your answer, you are free to leave. And I'll see you next Wednesday at 11:30. Okay. Any questions or suggestions? Please type them in.
We finish that element next week.
Yeah. No one's typing anything in? Come on. You could go if you want.
Will the classes relatively be an hour long?
Yeah. Are you gonna come in again next time?
Yeah, I'll be here.
Okay.
The last week I'm going to film on the course. I'll be here. I'll watch the recording.
Okay.
Thank you.
Take care. Okay, again, if you have a question or a suggestion, please type it in. Otherwise, you're free to leave.